Hey there, how's it going? I'm going to release 2 videos today. You're getting a lot from me this week. 3 videos this week, technically. Um, this one is just going to be a little recap of my first week of work. And then the next one's going to be more of like a thinky philosophical thing. So I had my first week of work this week. I mentioned in the last video how I had that orientation day where I went in with no sleep. That wasn't really work. I pushed carts for like an hour, but the whole time was just spent at the computer doing little training modules. But this week I had 4 shifts. The next couple of weeks is four days on, 3 days off, and then the week after that is 5 on, 2 off. I don't know if I'm going to be working 5 days a week, 4 days a week. Honestly, I'd like 4 days a week, being the lazy sack of shit I am, but if I have to work 5, it is what it is. It's more money. I need the money. So this week I had 4 days of work: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I realized something after like one day of working. And that's that despite having never been unemployed since I was 16 years old, some people think I've never worked a job. I don't know if they watched that first video, but I've had a job since I was 16. I've only been unemployed for the last 9-10 months. But I realized that despite being employed basically my whole life, I have never, until I started working this retail job, I have never worked a hard day's work in my life. Because after this, I know what hard work is like. And I'm sure a lot of you knew that. A lot of you were telling me that in the comments, that I'm soft and I've never worked a day in my life. But to an extent, it's true, because the level of like physical and mental strain that I've been under these last 4 days has been unlike anything I've gone through before. The first 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, I was pushing carts. They were short shifts. They were only 5 hours. My shifts going forward my shifts going forward are 7 to 8 hours with an hour lunch break in between. But the first 2 days were like training days, and they were only 5 hours. And I spent the whole time pushing carts, which I got to admit, like, part of me likes it, but most of me doesn't. It's outdoors, which is nice. You don't have to deal with customers, which is nice. It's physical activity, which, despite being overweight and really never having been in shape, I've always, like, intellectually, or at least since my early 20s, I've intellectually understood and appreciated the importance of physical activity and exercise. I've lived so sedentary for so long that I know firsthand how much it messes you up. So I've always like wanted to get in shape, and I've always, again, intellectually valued exercise, but I never really did anything with it. But working this job, I'm getting a lot of it, and so that part of it I actually like. It's really hard on the body. My hamstrings were completely blown out. Right now, they're actually doing okay. I don't have any pain in my hamstrings, but for a few days I did. My back, my arms, everything. And as painful as it was, and taxing as it was, I did kind of enjoy it. You're outside. Granted, I didn't have to deal with any inclement weather. That will really make it shitty. But at least those first 2 days were clear. Don't have to interact with customers. Get basically getting paid to work out, which is nice. I already feel like a little harder than I was a few days ago. But it is very physically strenuous, and it is pretty boring. I mean, you could pop in earbuds and listen to whatever, but it's very tough and very tedious. But I kind of liked it. Like, other than the weather problems, like if it was raining or snowing, or if it's like 100 degrees out, that would suck. But in good weather, There's a lot worse jobs, honestly. I kind of like it. Outdoors. It's kind of nice. But the last 2 days, I was on cashier for 8 hours. And the first day of cashiering, which was Wednesday, I was training, and they were supposed to get me logged into the register so I could do it myself, but they never did. So I just spent the whole day, 8 hours, just standing behind the sweetest old lady you'll ever see. An absolute doll of a woman. Lovely woman. She made the shift a lot better. But I was just standing there behind her, watching her ring things up for 8 hours. And the cashiers, when they're working, they have little pads under their feet that make it a little bit more bearable to be standing for 8 hours. And because I was behind her, I wasn't on a pad. I was just standing on the concrete floor for 8 hours. That was by far the worst work experience I've ever had in my life, hands down. Like imagine you go to like a supermarket or whatever, and you bring your card up to the register, and the person behind the register picks your items, and they scan it, they put it in a bag, they scan it, they put it in a bag, and all that. Imagine if when you did that and you bought your groceries, you had to stand there and watch it happen for 8 hours. Imagine how maddening that would be, how physically painful that would be. And that's basically what I had to do the first day, and it was friggin' horrible. But yesterday, I started cashiering myself basically right away. Like immediately. I watched the person I was training with do like 2 orders, and then immediately I started cashiering. And while it still sucks because you're standing for 8 hours, it's a lot better than that first day. Since I'm working afternoons and nights, it can be a little dead. It's not as active as it is earlier in the day. And that can be kind of boring when nothing's going on. But when it picks up a little bit, you got some busyness going on. Again, I don't like interacting with customers. I've never been that kind of guy. I'm the kind of guy who likes to be in a back room somewhere, not having to deal with people. But it goes by kind of, it definitely goes by faster than just fucking sitting there watching someone cashiering for 8 hours. So it sucks. It's not fun. It's boring. Your back still hurts. My knees hurt. My feet hurt. But it wasn't terrible. You're talking to people. I made a couple of people laugh. That I really enjoyed was like a couple of guys. You just talk to them. You say hello, all that stuff, and a couple of them. One of them 2 of them I made laugh, and they were like cool. Like you build up that rapport with them, and when they say goodbye, it's like a genuine nice goodbye, like nice to meet you kind of thing. So I think those little moments where you have those little interactions with customers that maybe have some levity to them, those will make your day. Those will just, they'll be fuel to kind of keep you going. I did cashiering a little bit in my early 20s. I think I might have even been a teenager. It was like very late teens, early 20s. I worked for a regional place, and I was a stocker, but at this place you basically did everything. So I did a little bit of cashiering back then, but it was only like maybe 20 to 30% of my job back then, and it was on a much older style register. So I had a little bit of experience in that, but it's been 15, 16 years since I did it. But when I started doing cashiering yesterday, the woman I was working with, who was a different woman from the day before, she said that I was good at it. She said, you don't seem like a newbie. Have you done this before? So I don't know. That felt kind of good, I guess, to be told that I'm doing something well. I don't know. But yeah, the job sucks, but it's a job. And it seems like I'm going to be splitting my time between carts and cashier. So, maybe it won't be so monotonous. It'll mix it up a little bit. I'll be getting some exercise outdoors sometimes. They have me working 2 back-to-back 8-hour shifts, not back-to-back, but 2 consecutive 8-hour shifts just doing carts in a couple of weeks. I'm kind of scared of that, honestly, because I did it for 5 hours and it was wrecking my body. So if I have to do 8 hours and 2 of them in a row, that's going to be pretty tough. But I'm also hoping my body adjusts to that. It's already adjusted to it a little bit. I'm not as sore today as I was the last couple of days. But yeah, like I said, I just feel like I've never really worked hard until this, because I've worked retail a little bit. It wasn't as demanding and strenuous as this. I worked at Burger King when I was a teenager, which sucked, but I was a teenager so long ago. And I delivered pizza for a while, and then I spent the last over a decade at a desk job. So I've never worked like construction or anything like that. I've never worked like intense retail like I am now. So I've never really worked that hard in terms of like the physical element of it is the biggest part. And those first couple of days, man, like I'm like a libertarian, like center right libertarian type. And after 2 days working retail, I immediately understood why so many people are communists and socialists nowadays. It's like, it's wrong. It's not true. I'm not a communist. There's a million reasons why it's false. But like, I totally get why people who maybe haven't studied it, don't really understand politics or economics or history or whatever, young people having to work these kinds of jobs, getting paid. You're not even getting paid enough to make rent. You need roommates. You're working full time. You're completely destroying your body mentally and emotionally. It's very draining because it's just boring to be in like a retail environment all day. And you're, like I said, you're doing all this work that's really physically demanding, and it's like constant. And you're not even being paid enough to get like a studio apartment on your own. And you're getting like, you're constantly like slipping back or just keeping your head above water. And for a minute there, I would like on the drive home of like the second night, man, I was balling for Stalin. Okay. I was like, this is bullshit. I am a Democrat now. I can't do this shit, man. We need the revolution. I'm joining Antifa. I'm just kidding. I know they're a terrorist group now. I would never condone anything like that. But it's like I was really doubting my liberal priors after my liberal in the classical liberal sense. I was really doubting my liberal ideology after 2 days of working retail, because that shit is brutal. And like, I hate retail in general. Like, when I was a kid, whenever I'd have to go to a retail place with my mom or whatever, I hated being there. Just the lights, the music, the customers, just everything about it has just always skeeved me. And now I'm spending like all of my time inside a retail place pretty much, or at least half of it with the cart pushing on the other half. But, even when you're pushing carts, you're still at the retail place. You're still inside a lot. So I hate it. I really hate it, but it is what it is. I got to do it. I don't really have a choice right now. I'm going to be looking for other work, but right now it's a paycheck. There's also like an ego element to it as well. Like, I'm not a dumb guy, and I've always kind of been middle class, kind of a pseudo intellectual type. Like so many of us are the puer eterni out there. A lot of us are middle class. Not really. I wouldn't say I was affluent, but I was very comfortable. That's the key. I was very physically comfortable for my whole life. And when you're physically comfortable like that, and you don't have to worry about hustling for money from a young age just to survive, you tend to just have a lot of time and energy to pursue intellectual things, philosophy, politics, technology, whatever it is. And because of that part of my personality, my history, and I'm admitting this, I know it's bad, I know it's wrong, but I feel like I'm better than this. You know, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm better than the people who work there. I feel like I'm better than the customers. I feel like I'm better than the whole thing. So that like adds to the misery because it's already a miserable experience, you know, regardless. But then you add that kind of narcissistic grandiosity to it where you feel like I'm better than this, I'm better than these people. And then that kind of engenders a kind of bitterness, you know, in your mind when you're doing it. But I'm aware of that, and I'm aware that it's kind of bullshit. It's like if I was better than this, I wouldn't be doing it, right? If I was better than this, I wouldn't have fucked off during my 20s and have been forced to do this in my 30s, right? So I'm not better than this. I'm exactly where I belong based on the decisions I've made in my life. And also, you know, people who work at retail are not bad people. They're not, you know, I think it's very tempting to look at retail workers as lowly, but you know, you don't know a lot, you know, you don't know people's circumstances. You don't know what they've been through. A lot of these people work way harder than any white collar job. So they, you know, I'm sure they have a lot of like resilience from that and a kind of groundedness in reality that a lot of people don't have who don't have to do that. So I'm trying to like get over that arrogance and that like supercilious outlook that I have on the job and on the people who work there because it's not right. It's callous and it's snobbish. It's inhumane, you know, looking at people who work low jobs that we perceive as low jobs and looking at them as somehow inferior. In some ways, you know, they are. A lot of them, you know, are not necessarily the smartest people. A lot of them have addiction issues and problems that kind of force them to work. It makes it so that's their only option. But again, you don't know a person's circumstance if you're not them, and you don't know the kind of virtue that they may possess. And they may possess more virtue than the average white collar worker. You really don't know unless you've been them or you get to know them really well. So this might just be cope to make myself feel better about working retail, but I do think there's a kind of bigotry against retail people and blue collar in general that I don't think is justified because, you know, these people literally make the civilization function, and without them, it would all collapse. So they're the bottom of the pyramid, and we should value people at the bottom of the pyramid because they do support civilization. Without them, none of this shit would run. Without them, the CEO of the company wouldn't be making billions of dollars. So that's something I've kind of learned through this week of working retail is that I'm not better than this, and in general, I think we should try to respect people at the bottom more than we often do. And I come from like a right-wing perspective that believes in hierarchy. And I've taken that, I think, too far to where I do start looking at people at the bottom almost like they're subhuman. And it's very easy to do that and look down on people like that, and it makes you feel better about yourself. It really is narcissism. It's people who are insecure about their own stuff, their own shortcomings, their own vices and failures, and they find somebody that they're allowed to hate, that they're allowed to look down on, and just abuse, basically, at least in their mind. Even if they're not outwardly doing it, they're like in their mind, like, this piece of shit, yeah, bag my groceries, bitch, you know. And that is just not, I don't think that's a good place to be for anybody, for you, for them, for the wider society. I just think it would be much better if we had some kind of like civic sense about this and respect for each other as people, you know, working together in this thing we call life to make it happen. God damn, do they not get paid enough, though? They do not get paid enough. Retail people do not get paid enough. I don't know how long I'm going to be working here. Hopefully not long, but, you know, I will never, even just after this 1 week of really doing hard retail work, I will never look at retail workers the same way again. I will respect the shit out of them every time I go to buy something. I've never been the kind of guy who's been mean to retail workers ever. I generally am a nice person when I'm dealing with someone in like a commercial capacity like that. But I'm just going to have I'm going to try to tip. I mean, I wish you could tip them. Like, I'm just going to have so much more respect for them now than I did, because now I have experience. But yeah, it's been really hard. I've been sore constantly. Today I'm not doing too bad. Today it's a little bit better. My knee was hurting. Now it's kind of not really hurting. My hamstrings were completely shot for like 2 days, but then they've started to recover. So this is making me feel good that my body will adjust to the new situation, and hopefully it'll get easier, and hopefully I'll lose some weight and get a little toned and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that element of it, hoping, that it gets, and I'm sure it'll get easier, just because this first week was mostly like training. So like it almost feels like they put the worst shit possible right at the beginning, almost on purpose, to like wash people out, to see who can hack it. Because if you can get through what I've been through the last 4 days, you can get through anything. Just the straight carts for 2 days, and then followed immediately by a training day where I'm just standing on concrete watching someone ring things up for 8 hours. Those 3 days, those are the hardest 3 days of my life, literally. So now that I'm actually doing cashier stuff, and it's going to be kind of splitting my time between carts and cashier, I'm sure it'll get a lot easier. I'll get more used to the job. Like, that's a whole other element of it, is when you start, there's nervousness and social anxiety that goes with having a new job. That will start to go away. I'll start to get into the routine of it, and my body will start to adjust to it and adapt. So I'm sure it's going to get a little easier over time. Who knows? Maybe it'll get harder. I don't know. But we'll see what happens, I guess. Little housekeeping stuff before I log off here. Again, I have another video coming later. I don't know how long it'll be. I don't know how long this one's been. 20 minutes, not bad. Little housekeeping here. The last video, I realized when I watched it back, I said like 20 million times. And that's kind of relevant, because I pride myself on being well spoken and not doing that. I know I've said it a couple of times in this video, but I think I said it less. And so many of the comments of that viral video were saying, wow, he spoke for so long without liking and umming. That's a real skill. And even Coding Jesus commented on that video and basically said the same thing. So when I listened back to that last video, and I realized it was horrible, man. I said like constantly. It was a little embarrassing, and I'm going to try to limit the amount that I do that as much as possible. We'll see what happens. I'm sure I'll have some good days, some bad days, but hopefully this one was a little better. Also with that last video, I know I pissed a lot of people off with that last video. The like-dislike ratio is actually higher, I think, than the two previous ones. But there were a lot of comments saying how I was just a soft bitch complaining and moaning about what people have to do every day of their lives. And at first, when I first read those comments, I was like, fuck you, you're just fuck off. But now, having worked for 4 days in a very difficult labor situation, I get it. They're right. They're totally, I mean, still, I still think, opening shifts, closing and then opening, I still think that's cruel and unusual punishment. And I will not accept that unless if the only way I can avoid homelessness is by doing it, sure. But right now I'm not in that situation. And that would be the only time I would ever tolerate that, because sleep is literally the most important part of your day is sleeping. So if my job is going to compromise my sleep like that, It's not worth it. I'll find another job. Like I said, the only way I would ever do that is if I absolutely needed the paycheck right now to avoid homelessness, and I currently do not have another job lined up. Because if I had to do that, I would immediately try to get another job, because it's bullshit. And if you do that, and if you've been doing that for years, and you're saying, oh, it's just what you have to do, that sounds like cope to me. That sounds like you're just accepting a bullshit situation, and you're not ambitious enough to try to get something else, because sleep is the single most important part of your day. It colors and determines the entirety of your life. It determines the longevity of your life, the quality of your life, your health, all that. So you should always prioritize your sleep schedule above your job. Like I said, if you're in a situation where you can't just materially, you cannot, I get it. But nobody should be accepting of that as the way it is, because that's bullshit. That should be illegal, in my opinion. One other thing, since that viral video, I've gotten a lot of comments from people saying that I'm unfairly judging myself based on society standards. And it doesn't matter if you're taking a while to figure things out. That's the case for a lot of people and all that. You got to go easier on yourself. You're not a loser, all this. A lot of people said things like, most millionaires didn't make it until after 40, right? All that kind of stuff. It's like, you're not late, you're right on time. And just because you're behind where you think you should be based on society standards doesn't mean you actually are. And I'd like to clarify that a little bit, because I saw a lot of those kinds of comments, and I think they are fundamentally misconceived. What's the word? Misunderstanding something. I know a lot of it was coming from like a good place. They're just trying to make me feel better about myself and trying to give me some positive affirmation. I appreciate, to the extent that was why people did it, I do appreciate it. But I don't think it's entirely realistic or accurate. Because the reason I am so down on myself and call myself a loser is not really because I'm judging myself based on society standards. I don't really even have a problem with living with my mom right now, because she's very old and she's disabled now, and she needs a lot of help. And I know that historically people lived with their parents very frequently. It's only really in the last 100 or so years that people, leave the nest at 18 and never come back. I understand that that's not, like, living with your parents isn't really that big of a deal. And I actually right now want to live with my mom so that she doesn't have to live in a freaking nursing home or old folks community, because she needs help and she needs someone around who can help her with things. So I really don't care about that. The reason I say I'm a loser, maybe because I use the word loser, it sounds kind of relative, like I'm a loser versus a winner. But the reason I'm down on the situation is not because society thinks I should be somewhere that I'm not. It's because my life sucks because of the things that I've done and the things that I've not done. I'm 35. I'm working retail, busting my ass. Literally busting my fucking ass. My ass muscles are sore at the end of the day. The definition of busting your ass at 35 years old. And I didn't have to be here, right? I may very well in the future be working 50 to 60 hours a week, living with roommates. That is a very real possibility. And that is not a desirable situation for anybody to be in, especially at my age, right? And into my 40s. So it's not so much that I'm comparing myself to other people or what society thinks I should be doing. I'm comparing myself to what I should be doing for the quality of my life. I shouldn't be working 70 hours a week at this age. I shouldn't be physically infirmed from the work that I'm doing every day. I shouldn't be completely emotionally and psychologically drained from the work I'm doing every day. People should be happy as they can be, right? People should lead good lives. And you should put the work in when you're young to set up a good life when you're older. And I didn't do that. So it's not about other people. It's not about comparing myself to other people. It's about simply not wanting to be miserable, right? And the fact that I had the time and the intelligence and the ambition, I really did, to do something as a young person, but I chose comfort over that. And now I'm in a situation where it is going to be uncomfortable all the time. And it didn't have to be that way. So that's where I went wrong. And that's why life sucks. Not because I'm comparing myself to other people, but because life sucks. I'm broke. I'm working a shit job that destroys me, and I did it to myself. So that's why I call myself a loser. Not because of what anyone else thinks, because of what I think about this situation and what it could have been if I had just tried when I was younger. And also, when people say, oh, most millionaires didn't make it until they were 40. Yeah, but those guys were also, they had like 5 failed businesses behind them in their 20s, right? They got started really early and ambitiously being an entrepreneur at a young age. And they probably made money and employed people. And maybe they went broke, but then they had all of those skills and experience to then make it in their 40s. No one makes it as a millionaire in their 40s just randomly, because they just start a business in their 40s and they're a millionaire. They went through a decade or more of struggle and work to build the kind of character that let them succeed in their 40s. So that's another thing a lot you got to think about. Whenever you see these people talk about, oh, this guy didn't make it until he was 40. This guy didn't make it until he was 50. Yeah, but if you had looked at the last 30 years of his life, 20, 30 years of his life, you would see a life full of work and effort and ambition and trial and failure that built him up to be the guy who made it in his 40s. No one just goes from being like a broke pothead to a millionaire in their 40s. That's not how it works. They spent their 20s and 30s building character and things, businesses, stuff like that, which is what made them who they are in their 40s. So I think people should check that myth that, oh, I can just make it in my 40s as a millionaire. No, you can't. Maybe you can make it in your 50s if you start trying in your 30s. But, you know, the people that make it in their 40s were doing a lot more than I was in their 20s and 30s. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. What else here before we log off? I have emails. I've been getting emails from you guys. There's an email on my channel. Might even be in the description of this, actually. I have not responded to many of them. There have been so many of them. It's been very difficult to read them all and respond to them all. I do apologize if you sent me an email and I haven't gotten back to you. I'm sorry. However, I do plan on starting to go through them this week, next couple of weeks, and responding to as many as I can. I may not respond to every single one of them. If I don't respond to yours, do not take it personally. It's just that I didn't feel like I had anything meaningful to say to it or whatever. So again, if I don't respond to your email, don't take it personally, but I'm going to try to respond to as many as possible. There are a lot and it's kind of hard. I did see one email. Someone made fan art of me. They drew like a little chibi anime version of me with a cigarette. And that completely blows my mind. You know, I see a lot of these streamers have like people draw fan art of them. And I always thought that was cool. Like, wow, this person like inspired someone to the point where they're going to spend like an hour or whatever drawing a pretty good picture of them. Like a lot of times it's good stuff. And I'm like as small as it gets. I just, I have one little video that popped off and I've already got someone drawing fan art of me. So I thought that was kind of crazy. But thank you for that. The person who drew that, that's awesome. It's inspiring to me to think that I moved someone to do that. Also, I want to shout out, there's a channel on YouTube I want to shout out. This dude does not get enough views. I love this guy's channel. He's been on YouTube for a long time, and all of his content is great. If you like music or writing, story writing, novel writing, if you like the craft of writing, I think you'd really like him. Check him out. His name is David Stewart. His channel name, I believe, is DVS Press. So you can look up one of those. Maybe I think DVS Press would probably be easier to find him with that. I love his content. I love the guy. Like I love him as a guy. I love his content. I'm kind of like a pseudo writer. I like that stuff. So his content really appeals to me, and he doesn't get enough views. He's well spoken. His voice is better than mine, and he's just like an awesome guy. And he talks about interesting stuff, and he does not get enough views. So I'm going to try to move some of you people over to his channel because he deserves it. Check him out. DVS Press, David Stewart, great channel. One last little shill attempt here. If you'd like to support me financially, if you'd like to support me monetarily, and you'd like me to get more of the cut, because YouTube does take 30%. If you'd like me to get more of the cut, I have a Buy Me a Coffee page, so you can donate through there. And if you do, I would very much appreciate it. I will get more of the cut of the donation, like 90. I think it's 95% versus YouTube 70. YouTube takes 30. Buy Me a Coffee only takes 5. So if you'd like to support me, you can do it there. And I appreciate everyone who has supported me already. A lot of people have, and it really is humbling. And maybe one day we can get to the point where I don't have to work retail. Who knows? We'll see what happens. That's not going to come for a while, but we'll see what happens. So anyway, I think that's it. I think that's everything I wanted to cover. Yeah. I appreciate you watching. The next one should be out shortly. We'll see what happens. I'm going to try to record it today, get it out there. But yeah. So, one last thing. Forgot. I should have said this at the beginning, actually. I'm quitting cigarettes, I hope. And my first baby step, you might say, to quitting cigarettes was today, because I'm so broke and my first paycheck was small because it only was 2 days of work that it covered. I had a choice between, do I buy a pack of cigarettes or do I buy a video game to stream? And I made the decision to buy Baby Steps, which is this new like walking simulator, man-child simulator game. And I figured it would just be like perfect for this channel and what we do here, what I do here. So I forgoed. What is it? Forwent? What's the past tense of forego? I deferred buying a pack of cigarettes and instead bought this game. So I'm going to be streaming that tonight, maybe around 8 or 9 EST. I'm not really sure, but around there. I know I have some EU people who want me to stream for times that they're available more. If I have a day off and it would be the afternoon for me. If I can do that, I might do that. But tonight it's going to be 8 to 9 p.m. EST for 2 to 3 hours. We'll see what happens. And again, I think that game is really good for this channel. It's very thematic. And, it's supposedly a pretty good game. So I'm going to check it out. I'm kind of excited about that. So tune in for that. Thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.